buy my first ever car. In order to do this, I had to take the first job I could find. And well, that's where my story begins. Of all the jobs available in my town, the only one with a vacancy was in wait for it, a funeral parlor. At first, I almost said no, but the pay was too good to refuse. And anyway, it was only on Saturdays. And all I had to do was clean the place and make sure it looked acceptable enough for families visiting their relatives who'd passed away. On my first day, I was pretty nervous. I'd never seen a dead person before, and I had all these images in my mind about what it would be like. I assumed I'd be seeing corpses everywhere, but actually it wasn't like that at all. Sure, it was a freaky place to work, but the other staff members were so nice. And that first day just flew by. I could have been working anywhere, even a dentist clinic. That's how clean it was. No dead bodies in sight. The next shift I worked was a bit more interesting. On my lunch break, my boss came in and asked if I'd mind staying in the staff room for the next hour or so, because someone had just been brought in. I shivered. I knew what that meant, and I knew exactly where they'd be taking them. There was a room at the end of the hall which I didn't need to clean, and no one told me why, but I mean, it was obvious. They stored the bodies there. Later that day, I had to clean the bathroom at the end of the hall, and just even the fact of knowing there was a body on the other side sent shivers up my spine. I'd never cleaned a toilet so fast in my life. I basically ran out of there after that shift. Later that evening, I still had goosebumps just thinking about it. But then I realized something. I'd left my jacket there and it had my cell phone in the pocket. There was no way I could wait until my next shift to get it back. I really needed my phone because I was waiting to hear back from this girl I liked. If she messaged me and I didn't reply, that would look really bad. So I took my dog Pebble out for a walk and decided to pass by the funeral parlor on the walk. I could run in, grab my jacket, and be out of there within 2 minutes. Well, Pebble wouldn't even approach the building. He just started barking as soon as we got nearby. And so in the end, I had to tie him to a grate while I ran in. I could hear his barking from all the way inside. I knew my jacket was in the room just off the staff room, so I headed there. As I opened the door, I turned on the light, and then I froze. Sure enough, my jacket was there, right where I left it. But next to my jacket was a corpse. It was just lying there on one of those beds like what a masseuse uses. I'd never seen a real dead body before. It was so pale, and it wasn't even covered up. I was so terrified I didn't even turn the light off. I just ran out of there as fast as I could. Whew, what a day. And well, that night, things weren't much better. I couldn't sleep, and Pebble barked relentlessly. He must have known there was a dead body inside. I felt sick. It must have been the body that they'd brought in earlier that day. All I could picture in my mind was her face. Yes, it was a woman, and honestly, I'd never been so freaked out. I barely slept, and I woke up to the worst news ever. My boss messaged me asking if I could do an extra shift that day, because the other cleaner was sick, and they could really do with my help. I wanted to say no, but he sounded desperate. As I left the house, Pebble was still barking. Why was I working in such a place? Well, luckily, I went back to get my phone, I guess. Otherwise, I might have been fired if I ignored my boss's text. I don't know why, but the first thing I did was go check the room to see if the woman was still there just in case. I'd imagined the whole thing. Well, she wasn't there. She was gone. Overnight, her body had just disappeared. I asked Lisa, the girl I worked with, where the body was, and she said there hadn't been a woman there at all, and that the body just came in the day before had been an old man. I couldn't believe it. Had I seen a ghost? That morning, I decided I couldn't work there anymore. I was paranoid. I went straight to my boss's office and told him I wanted to resign and that I was sorry, but I just couldn't do it anymore. He looked so confused and asked me why, so I told him. I had never seen someone laugh so much. He told me that the woman I'd seen wasn't a real person. It was a mannequin for the makeup artist to practice on, and that they'd never leave dead bodies just lying around. The makeup artist had to practice because many of the families wanted their dead relatives to look nice before being buried. I was so shocked, but then I started to laugh too. It was pretty funny, to be honest. And yes, I still work there, although I'm always a bit weary now. If something doesn't feel right, I think it's best to speak up, even if it means having to leave a job. I still get scared there sometimes, but hey, I've almost saved up enough to buy my dream car, so the fear is worth it.